those skills. So like it's about, implementing also practical classes into our curriculum at a younger age, because things like Spanish, like being able to speak a second language, that is so useful, especially in a country like America, where your neighbors could be completely different race, religion, culture than you, and they speak a completely different language. But like if you can speak that language or even speak another language, studies have shown that if you can just speak 2 languages, it's easier to pick up a third and a fourth.
Yeah, look, all of my friends going crazy. I gotta bring 'em my I can phase me. Too dope like I'm back in the 80s. Call me and I'm gon' slide. Up with me for a hell of a ride. If you need a couple friends, man, doing it right. Get up my line, we gon' turn up the night. I got a lot of wins on my dinner.
All right, cool. So welcome back to the Healthy Indian Podcast. I have my guest, Diya Patel. This is episode 90. So today we have a special guest joining us from Parsippany, New Jersey. Thank you for being here. I'm excited for this conversation because today we're diving into identity, mental health, growth, pressure, and what it really means to navigate your inner world in today's generation. Diya, thank you for coming on the podcast, and thank you for being such an impact to our town.
Thank you, Umang. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you for having me. I'm incredibly honored to be here and speak to you and hopefully, reach some folks that want to hear about, my journey, but also some of the things that we could do collectively as a community to help each other.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think having you on here, it will help the younger generation, as we talked about offline. And I think a lot of people that are your age will be able to really identify like the strengths that you portray, especially as a woman, especially as things like being part of the community, and especially kind of like, just being really involved when it comes to women's rights and like the younger generation, and then also mental health. So there's like so many topics we can go through. But one thing I wanted to ask you was, growing up, did you ever feel like you were balancing like 2 identities? Because especially now being so involved in town, you have your personal life, but then you also have your town life. And I'm sure people say hi to you, but sometimes you're probably also running on things last minute.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question because I think it's multifaceted in a lot of ways. Because I think you could go down the route of like my life right now. And, it is a little weird. Like I grew up in town. So there's all these like parents that I knew as a kid, but I don't remember them fully. And they're like, oh, like, do you remember so-and-so 4th grade? And I'm like, oh my God, yes. But then I have to like remember that I'm also not just like their kid's friend. I'm also like elected. So I'm juggling the 2 identities in a sense. But on top of that, I think going backwards a little, when you asked about, growing up, I think that's a really real question for our generation specifically, especially South Asian Americans, because I think a lot of us felt like we were balancing 2 specific identities growing up in America. We grew up with most of us grew up with parents who immigrated here. So we were first generation. And like you have a similar experience, and probably a lot of people that you went to school with. So like almost all of the Indian friends that I went to high school with, like they were first generation. And a lot of times, like it was trying to fit in the American culture and in the American world, like that you're surrounded with at school and your social life, but then also balancing it with your personal life and like the Indian culture and the expectations that almost our families have of us, and the way that they almost ask us to behave, and our outlooks on life, and the way we are meant to, how do I put this? Like be ready to go at a young age, like know everything and like plan out our lives, and, know exactly what type of doctor we want to be, or lawyer or engineer or whatever it was. But it was trying to find that middle ground. And I don't think anyone ever really did. It was always trying to find a balancing act. And then, if I want to go a little bit deeper than that, I always felt a little like I was balancing 2 identities because I always came off very white appearing. I speak perfect English. I am very pale typically. Like this is me tan. So like that tells you I can get tanner, but I'm still tan right now.
I wish I had that problem.
So it's great in that sense, but like I can tan. But, growing up, a lot of times I felt like I was almost too fair to be fully accepted with the Indian crowd because They always felt like I was whitewashed or Americanized, however you wanted to put it. And then there was the American side where I was always almost too Indian and I, ate weird food in a lot of people's opinions. And sometimes I smelled because I had oil in my hair. And like, those were like the little niche Indian things that always felt hated towards. And so I never felt like I belonged in either group really. Because, for one group I was too American and in another group I was too Indian. So it was, well, which one am I? Am I American or am I Indian? And it was learning as an adult that it's okay to be both and that there is acceptance in learning to balance being both and accepting pieces and bits of each culture. But that was a journey. It was learning to accept my identity as a first generation American with a really deep Indian heritage that I'm still connected to. And I think that's something that our generation, the generation after us, Gen Alpha, I think we're going to have Gen Beta after Alpha.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be an ongoing trend, even though parents are going to become, second generation, third generation. It's still going to be that balancing act, especially if we continue to see the hate that we're seeing today towards minorities and towards people of color. It's just so dividing, like the identity of it all.
They say we're divided states now inside United States. So
yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I can't say I disagree with some of the sentiment. I think America is really divided politically. I think the hardest thing is that we can't listen to each other. Like I can't sit across from someone who has differing views 99% of the time and have a pleasant, polite conversation where we agree that we disagree on almost everything, but there's at least one point that we agree on. And the inability to have that conversation is what's dividing us even more. And it's what's feeding all of the hate we're seeing everywhere. Because I grew up in Parsippany like my whole life, and I didn't really understand what it meant to be a minority until I went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I was genuinely a minority. Like I was 3% of the population at my school was of color. So I went from, yeah.
I've been to that area. When you go to that area, you definitely feel like a little out of place. For sure. I went there for a hike back in the day, and I'm like, it doesn't feel like New Jersey or Parsippany rather whatsoever.
Yeah. And so like coming from a town where, like I did have that feeling of not fitting into either group, but I also didn't feel like I was extremely hated in one way or another. I didn't feel unsafe. I didn't feel like, wearing an Indian dress was going to make me a target of people spewing hate at me. And that was the beauty of growing up here. It's why I came back. It's why I want to buy a house here and why I ran for office here, because our community has very much so been accepting. And I think up until this point, there hasn't been as much of a divide with the identity politics and the, racial issues and the, cultural issues and the immigration issues of it all. But now with the hate that we're seeing at the federal level, it's just trickling down, I think. And I see it a lot. And it's just sad, I think, to see how we came from a community that, 20 years ago, you didn't really even understand what a minority was when you were one, because no one, treated you that differently. Like there was still acceptance and there was, finding bonds across cultures. And like, perfect example of this, my childhood best friend, Ruth, she moved in across the street from us when I was like 3 or 4. And they came over to our house, introduced themselves. I didn't speak a lick of English. I only spoke Gujarati and Hindi up until I was 6. So I met her when I was 4 and we became best friends instantly. She only spoke English. I only spoke Gujarati and Hindi. It didn't matter though. We played with Barbies, board games, all alike. It didn't matter that we couldn't speak the same language. We still had fun. We were still friends. We had that mutual understanding that it didn't matter that we were from different cultures or that she was white and I was brown or that I was Indian and that she was American or Caucasian, that like we were friends. That was the bottom line. We could just be friends. There was no hate, no care in the world that I didn't understand anything she said and she didn't understand a thing I said. It was just, hey, here's a Barbie, we're gonna play.
So there was a connection. So there was a connection. And it wasn't one with words. It was just one with, I guess, physical touch or, Barbies.
Yeah, it was just common, like, we both wanted to be friends and it didn't matter that we were different. All that mattered is that all that mattered was that we accepted each other and we had fun together, you know, and
Exactly.
at the end of the day, it sounds really dumb, but like that is kind of the basis, right? Like the foundation of everything isn't, you know, what religion or what language or what race. It's, are we all happy? Are we all working together? And is the community, the country, the state moving forward in a positive way? And like, yeah, we can all disagree, but there are basic things that are all awarded to us by just being human. And we have kind of lost sight of that, I think.
So I guess in my definition, because I love diving deeper into this kind of stuff. What does it mean for you to be human?
I mean, I think it's that's a really good question.
I know when you said that, I was like, shit, I gotta actually leverage this a little bit. Because
No,
you,
yeah.
you went to a place where when you were really young, right? And this was like your friend Ruth, I believe. So Ruth and you just had like such a good childhood memory, and it was about connection. So like that's why I was just curious to know. And this is just off the dome, but like, what does it mean for you to be human? Because I guess if you get down to that down to that answer, I think you can connect a lot of people, you know, instead of keeping it on such a like complex level. You could kind of like touch other people and them, even if though they have different views. Because I think it just comes down to that moral obligation of, you know, respecting each other's neighbor, and still disagreeing, or agreeing. But I think like the biggest thing is just kind of like having that level of connection, right? You don't have to like them. You just gave a good example of that. I mean, you do like them, but you don't have to like everything they like, right? Or speak everything they speak in your case.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think we have gotten to a point in this, you know, timeline of history where I think everyone wants each other to just believe what they believe or think what they think. And we've lost sight of this great experiment that is democracy, which is we can have differing views. That's what this country was founded on. It was founded on religious freedom, and it was founded on freedom of speech and expression. And it was because they wanted to do something different. They wanted to practice a different religion, and they wanted to have a different culture in a sense than what was mandated back in the day in England. And that's why they came to America. And so I think to be human, I don't know if I'm going to do a good job answering this question, but
yeah, I know
I think
it's a nice, like, you know, you have to think about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very similar to what you just said of, you know, respecting each other and remembering that like the human existence is one where we all go through our struggles. We all have our highs and our lows and our in-between moments. And like, I think this is my philosophy on the world, maybe a little bit of like, as a human, like, you know, there's that whole fate versus like free will argument. And I believe in like a mix of both in a sense. Like, I believe that we're all put on this planet for a reason. Like, there is some end goal in mind, but I believe that, you know, every little moment of your life isn't planned out. Those are the moments that you have free will. So like me talking to you tonight, that's free will. And that's me choosing to do something. But like me being a lawyer, I was meant to do that because I found a calling and a purpose in helping people versus like, you know, going down the street to get some Taco Bell or Dunkin'. Like that's free will and choice. And like, it's understanding that we all have those moments of like, we're making choices and we're learning and giving ourselves grace. My favorite quote I read on like Instagram or Facebook somewhere a little while ago was, it's important to remember that it's your parents' first time living too. And like, yeah, like it really hit me because, you know, we all struggle with our parents and we all struggle with like, they don't understand me, I don't understand you. And like, there's always that disconnect. We're all gonna like argue with our parents, we're all gonna fight with them. But it's also remembering to give them grace because we're all figuring it out together. Like they might be 20, 30, 40 years older than you, but they're still figuring it out too. It's a day by day thing. And it's about learning to give yourself and each other enough grace to just learn and figure it out collectively. So I think that's what it means to be.
That was a great answer. That was awesome. No, I definitely, that resonates with me because I think my parents are still, or everyone's parents in the South Asian American Indian Desi space are basically figuring a lot of things out, right? I guess like for one is like how to have, like, you know, they're from India and stuff, how to have kids and also mesh with the American societal system, right? Like what is college? What is like sports? What is picking up your kid from a soccer game, right? Me and my brother, we have a 13-year difference. So definitely, like, I guess in a way, like for my parents, like I saw it visually, was like, I didn't have too many options growing up because of the fact that I was the first kid. But when you have the second kid, he had so many more options because he was able to leverage these resources that are available in society. Whereas like my parents, when they had me, was like their first motive was survival, right? Like having a foundation in Parsippany somewhere, and from like Trivoli Gardens or whatever to like expanding out and having my own, like our own place or estate or whatever. So I think like having like that sense of that sense of purpose for parents, I think that's a really good quote that kind of stands out. Like parents, they're learning every day, and I think we have to teach them too sometimes to learn. And they might need help with simple things, but they're also like, they can make a really, really like other things, like especially the kitchen, like, parents can know how to make cha and roti and all that stuff. And I can't do that. So I think giving grace is very important to them, and also to even some of our friends too. Cause I feel like people have a certain view of how the world is right now. And I think there's ways to talk to them and connect with them rather than replying with aggression and violence, because I think that's when the conversation goes south, especially with mental health too. Like I think a lot of people don't believe in mental health, and I think everyone kind of goes through it and everyone has like different waves of it. So I think mental health is very important. I guess for you, do you deal with, I don't want to say like, I mean, do you deal with like mental health like in the Indian household right now, or even with the job you're doing, especially with all the hecticness?
Yeah, I mean, I think to say no is a flat out lie. I mean, stress is a very real thing. It's a mental health issue. And I think anxiety is a real thing. And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that I don't have anxiety and that I am not someone that gets anxious in situations, because that'd be a lie. And I mean, it's a human experience to get anxious. It's a human experience to be stressed, even to be depressed. It's normal and it's okay. And I think that stigma of it not being okay is what leads so many people to sit on podcasts like this and say, no, like I manage it so well. I do a great job of balancing. But it's like that social media effect, right? Like no one puts their bad days on social media,
Never.
but we all have them, right? Like we all get anxious before we have to speak in front of a crowd of people. And that's anxiety. That's real. And that's mental health. There's ways to cope with it, but it's also recognizing that it's normal and okay. That's the big first step you have to take.
No, that's awesome. And I think embracing it is like the biggest thing too. And I like that, you're like, you acknowledge it, but you're also not like afraid to admit it. I think that's like the biggest thing. Cause I feel like when people open up about their feelings, especially, I would say like anyone that's like kind of like a dominant figure, it could be male or female, it's harder for them, I think, than someone that is so used to, they're extroverted, they're vocal, and they're able to just say anything and everything. Whereas people who are more introverted, they really do struggle with, releasing some of like their emotions or their thoughts sometimes, because people kind of trample over them, or I don't know, or talk over them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. No,
That is
fair.
something yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like recently speaking to someone about introvert versus extrovert, and I was like, I'm technically an extrovert. At least I thought I was, right? At least in that conversation. And I was like, yeah, like, I'm an extrovert apparently because, I can talk to everyone and like, but it's exhausting. Like I find it to be exhausting. She's like, actually, so if that's the case, you're actually an introvert and you just cope really well with your introversy, or I don't know how to put that, with being an introvert. But if you're an extrovert, being in those social situations actually feeds you and it makes you more energized. And so It was interesting to understand that, right? And so like that's where I kind of got the perspective on extrovert versus introvert. And like you can be an introvert and also be the loudest person in the room. But it's about tackling that fear, because I think being an introvert, a lot of it does have to do with fear and anxiety and mental health. And like, especially in those social situations, because social anxiety for introverted folks is very real. Like I hate a party situation. Party settings are not my thing. I would literally be that person in the corner, like on my phone, like holding, a glass of water because I can't engage because it's overwhelming and, too much activity is happening around me. So I think it's about just like understanding that that's normal, but also like, especially in our culture, it's about changing that stigma, right? And it's about having folks that, you know, are on podcasts and are on, you know, social media and in spaces where they have a platform to go off and actually speak about these real experiences, because it's easy to go on social media and put a picture up where you look amazing in front of a crowd of folks, but it's also not the reality sometimes. It's sometimes what you're putting out there so that people think a certain way because that's what you want them to think. And that's real. That's very real. I have FOMO. Everyone has FOMO. Like, it's real to want your Instagram feed to look a certain way.
Yeah, and I think it's that, like, that also, like, our childhood and, like, going to school and getting straight A's. I think it's just, like, that part of that perfectionism is, like, on social media. Like, we want to look a certain way because we feel, you know, we were raised a certain way, we got straight A's, we worked our butt off, and then now we want to portray that online so people will accept us. But I think, like, again, like, showing, like, parts of you that are real is more commendable, and people respect that more than you always trying to show that you're a certain way. Even with AI now in the mix too, I think AI is kind of scary too. I love AI. I'm an AI enthusiast, but it is just getting so out of hand now. Like, I see people in the ocean drowning each other or something, like, you know, just like how real it looks. It looks like you could make a movie out of it.
No, yeah.
So definitely, yeah, you could, like, essentially edit your profile picture and, you know, your figure or, like, maybe your eyes or something. But it's insane that people have access to that now. And I think it will have a lot of good things, but I also think, like, it might be a little dangerous for people who are insecure because now they might rely on something like AI, you know? So what are your thoughts on AI though, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, AI is definitely a topic. I actually just wrote my doctoral paper on technology.
Wow.
So I'm very interested in this. So it was basically about how technology is like trampling your Fourth Amendment right to privacy. And so I just took like AI and data collection and all. And I think there's some real harms to it, just like you were just talking about. Because you're right, like there are going to be so many people, and it's like like, do you remember in the early 2010s where we were seeing a huge spike in suicides amongst teens because of social media cyberbullying?
Yes. Cyberbullying was really bad. I think they had a documentary on that too.
Yeah, I remember that one. And, like, I think the development of AI, the way it's being developed and the way it's being deployed, it's really reminding me of like the way social media was deployed and the way it was like rolled out essentially, and how it very much so snowballed very quickly into what happened with the cyberbullying and the inability for folks to see the difference and actually be able to put aside the things they were seeing on social media and like really pulling it into their real lives and like into their daily perception of who they are. And I think with AI development, it's only going to get worse in that sense. Because you're right, people are going to AI, you know, their photos and try to look like a supermodel or like The Rock or whoever they idolize. And I think that's really harmful because, you know, we went through this period in history where we had body positivity. That was kind of the trend. And, you know, a lot of brands were creating inclusive sizing and they were having models that had inclusive sizing. And I think right now with AI, we are really kind of going backwards a little bit because AI is creating basically images of perfect looking people, and they have no pores and they have perfect looking hair, and you know they don't look tired and they look like they're 6'2" or whatever, and that gives people, you know, body dysmorphia comes out of that. People will have mental health issues if they like get very attached to things like that, and it's hard not to when it's all over everywhere. Because what do you do every morning when you wake up, or when you're scrolling at night when you're going to bed? Where are you? You're on social media. You're seeing all this AI stuff, and AI is being implemented into every new app that you see. And Instagram, Facebook, all of them have added AI assistants. So it's only getting bigger and more almost like, pushed down your.
Yeah, like ManyChat automation was added to Instagram. That was never there. But now it's like there. And on top of that, there's Meta AI as well. And I think there should be some guardrails because I feel like, especially for younger kids, you know how they, in psychology, they tell us your frontal lobe is growing until the age of 25. I think like that, I'm not saying restricted till 25. I'm just saying like at least maybe like until 18, restricted for them, because I feel like kids, especially us growing up, we have to learn how to think on our own and then use AI. I don't think it's, but again, I definitely see the benefits of it. Like if, kid just needs information, but I also think like part of the journey sometimes a struggle.
No, I get it. I mean, so when I was working at the Bronx this past summer, when you're a lawyer, the biggest thing you're taught is research. You need to learn how to research properly. And, when we're kids, like we learn those skills. You've always written research papers in school and they teach you to, use the databases and how to distinguish. So I'm working with people and we're all talking about how we're researching. And I'm like listening and they're all like, oh yeah, Lexis is this platform we use for legal research. So they're like, oh yeah, I just use Lexis AI. I'll put the prompt in there or I'll put like the cases, like the topic I want. And I'm like, wait, hold on. You do what? That's your first step? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's insane. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, I use keywords like you're taught in school. And they're like, well, that's so slow. And I'm like, right, but that's how you get better research because AI doesn't know everything. And like, it's not going to get, it's going to misidentify things and it's not going to understand fully the law because it isn't trained to do that. And they're like, well, it's easier. And like, it's always pretty much right. And I'm like, right. But like, do you know how to properly research? And they're like, I can figure it out. And I'm like, are we not teaching students how to properly research anymore? And we're just relying on AI to do it. Like my brother is a great example. He's 9 years younger than me. So when you said the whole age gap, I totally understand you. Yeah, I'm the oldest. I have two siblings.
Nice.
My brother's
Welcome to
the
the group.
youngest.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a really smart kid, right? English and like history really isn't his thing. He's more of a science math person. But, even so, like I expect that his writing is at a 10th grade level. And I think COVID is partially to blame. I think AI is partially to blame. But like he'll have me read some of these drafts and I'm like, wait a minute. Did they not teach you this? Like Oxford comma, right? Like I know it's not an exceptionally necessary comma or anything. However, It's a good tool. It makes you look a little smarter in papers. It's good in college. And so like I was like, oh, like you should put a comma there. And he's like, why would I do that? And I was like, oh, it's an Oxford comma. And he was like, what is that? And I was like, did they not teach you that? And I'm like, the sentence structure could use like a little bit more, just work because it's a little like basic. And, it's again, like he's smart. But I think it's the fact that they spent a lot of time online because of COVID and the instruction wasn't as good. And like you can say colleges, like when I went to college online, it wasn't that bad and it wasn't any different really because college professors very much knew how to teach online because they've done some of that versus like high school students and high school teachers. It was such a new concept for them that I think there was a lack of resources and there was a lack of understanding how to actually use a Zoom and like not have 40 kids like talking all over each other and not losing class time and actually being engaged. And so I think it really harmed our students because now they're coming into these grades where they should be at a higher level and they're just not. And it's gonna hurt them when it comes time to go to college and they have to write these papers and they have to do this research because their skills have been stunted. And AI is only stunting it more because AI basically does the work for you. It's a cheat code and kids love cheat codes. I loved a cheat code back in the day. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I loved if I could find calculator help. There was a calculator back in the day where you took a picture of the math problem and it would help you solve it. And like, I sucked at math. I am not a math person. I went into law for a reason. Like, I used it when I really couldn't understand the pre-calc questions. I used it to help me with my homework. Like, yeah. But AI is just a new beast of information overload that it can provide you.
Yeah, no, I could see that too because AI also has like so many benefits. Just to play devil's advocate to you, but it has so many benefits. But I think it's about like, what purpose is you're using it for, right? And I feel like if it gives you the answers, then there's no point of going to college, right? So I also think like part of the journey is like the struggle. So like you said, like your brother may be smart in so many ways, but the thing is like at the end of the day, he still has to get his, I guess, like his grammar writing up or something, because eventually when a situation presents itself in college or later on in the future, maybe a work or something, those skills will be required, right? And that goes for everybody. And same with a lot of people I know that are in the IT and software engineering industry, because those guys have to use it like coding. And now a lot of them that I know, through the grapevine are basically using AI like agents and bots to really code. And I think it's good in the short term, but the long term, I feel like for job growth and job security, it's going to be really, really rough on the younger generation. So what would you say, like, I guess like being in the position you are right now, like what are the challenges some of the younger generations are facing? I guess maybe with mental health or even things you're seeing in the educational system. What are those things that are like kind of like, because I always see you out, when you go to those daily town meetings, you post on like what you guys talked about, you do a recap. So I think that's really cool. You share that with the community. But also like, I'm sure you formulate your own opinions as you get all this information, right? So what are you seeing like from a practical standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I think with students, one of the biggest things is just a lack of real world education, right? Like we learn all these subjects in school and they're great, and I'm not saying we shouldn't. However, has anyone really sat down and taught you how to file your taxes or how to balance a checkbook? Like that's practical real world skills that a lot of our students don't have. And like New Jersey is one of the only states in the country that used to mandate personal finance. Now the law's changed a little and you can take AP Econ. And it doesn't provide you the same education as a personal finance class, which is why I'm hoping that this foundation, it's called the Budget or Bridge Budget Foundation. It's a group of high school students. They're working on trying to get the bill to revert back where you're only allowed to do personal finance to satisfy that graduation requirement. And I think it's really important. Yeah, like I would love to see that happen because I think it's really important when you go back. You probably took the personal finance class at the
Oh, yeah.
Hillsford High. Yeah,
Yeah.
I took it with Mr. Candle.
Okay. Awesome. No, I went to, my brother went to Parsippany High and I went to Clifton, but we still had personal finance as a course. So I still took it with income sheets and I did accounting. So I actually did learn a lot. And it's definitely real world stuff because you definitely comes back to you.
Right. Like the teacher I had in high school, Mr. Candile, he did this thing where we did simulation trading basically. So like you would have fake money in a sense and you would invest in stocks and figure out how to use the stock market. And it taught me how to invest in a lot of ways. Like I had the foundation of it. Same thing, like he taught us how to fill out a check and like what it means to like void a check and give it to an employer. Like just little things. And like it was so valuable when I went off and got a job part-time while in high school or in college and knew how to manage my money, that I should put 75 in savings and 25 in my checking. Like we were taught that. But now that's not taught anymore. It's not a requirement to be in that specific class. And that hurts students because they're leaving high school without an actual understanding of, how to fill out a check, how to balance their checkbook, how to, save their money. A lot of people I know are like, oh, I just have a checking account. I'm like, what do you mean you only have a checking account? Like you should have a savings account. You should open, a 529 account as soon as you can. Like just little things. And no one teaches you that in school. It's the real world application that helps people set themselves up financially and professionally for generations to come. And our public education system and even our private education system, the curriculum in America really just doesn't cover the practical everyday things. And it's really unfortunate because then we're lacking and we're behind in that sense.
Yeah. And I guess like what is like the solution just to implement these courses, I guess, in our educational system, implement them back in our system? Is that the solution, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's a good start. I mean, like personal finance, I think we should definitely get rid of allowing AP Econ to satisfy the personal finance requirement for graduation. I think it should go back to being a personal finance class. But I think that's a start. I think, it goes beyond that. I would love to see civic education be mandated. I would love to see, we have some kind of shop class be mandated. I know that sounds ridiculous and I'm a girl saying that, but like, I learned at a young age how to put furniture together. And like, I, as a hobby, like to like get old furniture and refinish it. So like, I will sit there with a sander in my garage and like sand a desk and like refinish it with, new stain and all. And I'll seal it and do all that. But no one teaches you to do that. It was just me going down a rabbit hole to find out how to do that at a younger age. And now as an adult, I possess those skills. So like, it's about, implementing also practical classes into our curriculum at a younger age, because things like Spanish, like being able to speak a second language, that is so useful, especially in a country like America, where your neighbors could be completely different race, religion, culture than you, and they speak a completely different language. But like if you can speak that language or even speak another language, studies have shown that if you can just speak two languages, it's easier to pick up a third and a fourth. And if English isn't your first language, you're more likely to pick up a third, a second, a third, a fourth language much easier than someone who speaks English as their first language. It's just a fact that they've proven in studies.
And like, even if you look at it too, right? Like, just look at some of the jobs out there. Like if you do sales, for example, right? And you have like a Spanish client or Spanish, just somebody like a mom that really wants to buy a house. Like maybe I'm just giving an example. And you're a realtor. Like just knowing Spanish can really help you like close the deal and give also the client or whoever the person is confidence, right? In you, because the fact that like, you know, their language hits home, right? In our culture, talking Gujarati and like, you know, having chai and just like, you know, chit chatting here and there. For us, it's like funny, but like for the parents, it really does break the ice. I've noticed that time and time again, and it allows them to trust you more too. And they'll always be like, this is such a, you know, good girl or good guy or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like automatically you're like their favorite, you know?
Yeah.
So having a,
so go ahead. Sorry.
no, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it goes back to that point we started with of representation really matters, right? Like being able to speak and connect with folks. And like in my field specifically, like being a lawyer, when I pass the bar, it's going to be one of those things that helps me that I can speak another language because I'll be able to actually properly communicate with a client who speaks Gujarati or speaks Hindi, because that I'm not going to need a translator. You know, there isn't going to be that need for a third person in the room that they have to go through to get to me and speak to me, versus like I can just directly speak to them and give them advice in Gujarati, in Hindi. And that's huge because it creates trust, it creates bond, and it helps people be able to actually see representation in you and in themselves.
Yeah. And even like when you touch base with them again in the future, you already have the rapport because it's just something so familiar to them and relatable to them. So I definitely do value the need to have multiple languages under your belt. And I feel like now I'm thinking about it, like thinking back, I might actually go back and learn some Spanish or Hindi, right? I'm pretty good with it, but yeah, definitely. I think anyone can like, you know, utilize it. It'll be valuable in your day to day if you do come across people with that origin. So social media, let's talk about that. How are you handling social media? Cause you know, on social media, you're very like extroverted, popular, I guess. People know you, right? In town, out of town. So how do you kind of manage social media with also your regular tasks? Or is social media like a big part of your job right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think social media is definitely a part of the job in a sense. Like the videos, as you mentioned, I started making those because I saw that residents most of the time can't come to the meetings, but then they also don't have the time to go watch an hour-long video. And then on top of that, like the township website is kind of difficult to get through. And it's like, then you have to read through the agenda. And unless you're a lawyer, you don't really know what the agenda says because it's all in legalese, right? Like no one understands what the TBR project is because you're not like you've never seen it, you never heard of it. So I started making the videos so that, you know, you could sit down for 5 minutes and just know exactly what we went through and what was approved and what wasn't approved. And so that like if there was something that stuck out to you, right? Like if it was, you know, recently we did the cannabis licenses and there's been a lot of talk about that. If that stuck out to you and you heard it in my video, then now you know, okay, let me go look that thing up because you've now narrowed it down and you've only spent 5 minutes versus wasting an hour and trying to find the one thing that you're thinking about that happened. So it's about giving residents an avenue to, you know, use their time wisely because I don't want to waste their time. Time is money in a lot of ways, and parents are busy. Residents don't really have the time to sit down and just watch an hour-long council meeting. So it's about respecting their time and respecting that, you know, they do need the information and it's important that they get it, and doing it in a way where I'm meeting them where they are, right? Like I think a lot of the times with politicians specifically and elected officials, I think the biggest problem I see is they typically want you to meet them where they are And I think that's where you lose the true meaning of being a public servant. Being an elected official is not being a celebrity. It's not about being famous or rich or whatever. It's about public service. Like, that is truly the core foundation of it. And I think a lot of elected officials and politicians kind of lose sight of that, and they want you to meet them where you are or where they are. And that just goes against the whole nature of public service. We are there to serve the public. And so my mission really is to meet the residents where they are and to meet them in a place, in a sense, where like is comfortable for them and what is going to help them the most. Because I get paid $14,000 a year from them to do this job. So it's my job to make sure that they feel like they're getting the resources and they're not pulling at teeth to try to get them. So social media definitely, I think, is part of the job. I think I try to stay off of it as much as I can. I mean, I will post something and then just close out the official accounts. My personal accounts, I typically am on a little bit more. I like the cooking videos on my search page. But outside of that, like, I don't like to be on social media a lot. It's so negative, and Facebook specifically is just so fueled by hate. So I think it's important to give residency information and use social media as a tool to do that, but it's terrible for your mental health.
Okay, so I guess that answers my second question because I had it here. I was gonna actually ask, like, how do you personally protect your peace digitally? But you kind of answered it. You're like, you just turn it off, you know? You just like
Yeah, I mean, I turn it off. I separate a lot. Like, I think it's a lot about juggling and separating. Having the official councilwoman account versus like my Diya account is useful in a lot of ways, because like the councilwoman account is the official stuff, and that's where I want that's where I'm meeting residents, right? And my personal account is my personal account. That account's been up since like 2015, I want to say. And so like that is just the way I've always seen my personal account, even before I had an official one, was it's kind of like a digital library, a digital photo album of my life. I'm one of those people that doesn't edit. I don't do filters. I don't do any type of editing on photos. I just find it useless. I don't like to do that. I'm not someone who wears a lot of makeup either. It's just naturally who I am. I like to embrace the reality. And yeah, no, I'm not posting my bad days, but I'm also not artificially adjusting them. And the reason I do that is because I view my social media as like my photo album. It's, you know, my highs and my wins and the things I'm going to want to show my kids someday of like, hey, look, your mom was cool back in the day, you know? Like, so yeah, like I like,
she also had like her own life apart from
yeah, right.
in town. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, like I like that my Instagram feed on my personal account is very much my friends, and like, you know, every other post is now my friend getting engaged or getting married or having a kid. And like that's nice and it's happy and it's fun versus like the hate and the like ICE and, you know, Trump and MAGA and, you know, we don't like that you passed this and we don't like that you're a Democrat and we don't like this and that. And like, it's so hard because it's so all consuming. And like, don't get me wrong, I sometimes will go in the comments and I do sometimes read those comments, and it is mentally draining. And I have to remind myself that as upset as it makes me, like, it's also not real. It's people have all the courage behind a keyboard and a screen where they can't be identified. But in reality, like, no one is willing to come up to me and say those things because they don't have the courage to do it.
It's also, sorry to cut you off, but
no, please.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's also kind of like cyberbullying in a way, because they can hide behind that like screen, so they don't have to confront you in person. And people are so different in person when they're on a screen. Like, I met somebody on social media that was like crazy, like negative. And when I saw them in person, they were opposite of who they were. So like in person, people are not who they like portray to be online, and people are more aggressive because they have Twitter fingers, right? They can just go off on you and then like you could take it personally. But I think like, you know, you kind of putting yourself out there and still like helping the town out, I think that's a big deal, because I think someone your age and someone that is taking on so much responsibility for the town, I don't think I've seen that in a long time. And I'm not just saying that. I mean, I really do mean that. Like, I think like we both have a common goal here. Like for me, the authenticity part's the podcast. But the reason I got you on this podcast, your authenticity part is to help our town, right? And I don't know if you're a fan of Mamdani or anything like that, but I saw one thing I do like is like the fact that he only cares about New York in an obsessive way. But in a way, I think that's a good thing, because he blocks out the negative part. I'm just saying like the good I see in that whole situation is I don't want to take a political side, but I'm just saying like he blocks out the negative and only cares about his town, but he's doing what he feels is right. And I think if you, and can I say his name or no? Like our mayor or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. I don't know. He's new, so I don't know all the rules behind. So you and Pulkit are essentially like the people who are going to represent our town, right? So I think like the biggest thing as a resident, I think my biggest thing is just like as long as you guys focus on the town and stuff, I think you guys are going to win. So
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I keep saying to folks, right? Like, especially in town hall, every time I'm there, because I'm there quite a bit now, and every time I'm there, they're like, "Oh, like it's so refreshing, it's so refreshing," and I'm like, "Yeah, like we're just normal people, like every time the clerk will introduce me to someone, they'll be like, "This is Councilwoman Diya Patel," and I'm like, "No, please call me Diya," because like one, the title kind of makes me a little uncomfortable, but two, like I'm a normal person. All right, I'm 24, like it's a little weird to have someone use a title with my name, and like I think for me, the other part of it is truly the authenticity of it, right? Like I grew up in town. The mayor raised his family here. He's been here for over 20 years, I want to say. We are normal people. We grew up here. We are Parsippany residents. We didn't have political ambitions in the sense of like, let's make a name for ourselves or anything. It was our taxes are too high. They're building so many apartments without sustainably thinking through where they're putting them. And like, what is anyone doing about it to help? Where is the representation? Where are the values? Where are the people that aren't going to just sell out to the corporate developers? And like that's where we kind of came along, and we were like, hey, like we didn't know each other before this. Like I knew his son. His son was a year before me in elementary, middle school, and high school. And so like I knew his son, but I didn't know the mayor. And like we met this past year and we had a common goal. It was making Parsippany better than it was. Like, the saying of like leave things better than you found them.
yes.
So that was kind of the goal here. And it was, we saw problems, we saw issues, and it was finding solutions to make it better. And every day I see us doing work where I see township employees happy, and I see people saying, like, this finally got done. I kept asking and I kept asking and I kept asking, and no one did it. And it's like, well, that was easy to do. Someone just had to sign the paper. And like, it's insane that there was a lack of action, and that's why people were just, in a sense, suffering through major problems.
So I wanted to ask, because I'm just curious, but how has the transition been since the balance of power has changed? Because now it's probably like a lot of challenges you guys are facing when it comes to like what was done before versus what is done now. So how are you guys kind of taking it? Is it very overwhelming, or is it more like you guys are doing it in chunks and stuff? I'm sure that it is really overwhelming, but I want to know because I'm not in those meetings. And again, like I'm working, right? So again, like I'm a good example of exactly what you just said 2 seconds ago. I can't go to the meetings because I also have like work and I'm traveling or whatever. So I just hear what I hear and I go with what I see,
Right. And it's nice that you can get it from the source now. You know what I mean? You're not reading it from the person you focus or tapping to. You're actually getting a representative to talk to you. And that's the basis of this. But yeah, I mean, transition, I will say, like, the first month was a little overwhelming, I think, because we got no transition before that. So really the first month in office was the transition when we should have already been transitioned. But, the mayor has been doing a fantastic job. I can't emphasize enough how great of a job he's done with just getting everyone up to speed with what's going on. And he's been asking township employees if they're happy. It's a question I guess no one really has asked. And I think that's one of the biggest things of like communicating with the employees and communicating with the people that keep this town running. And I think the last administration just didn't do a lot of that. Like we have emails that go back and, it's like, no one answered you. Why? Like just a lack of action over and over again. And that doesn't help morale, and it doesn't help the town, and it doesn't help anyone when really like just being able to do certain things, like if it's not something that like requires a massive, shift in policy or anything, like if it's just operating things, like making sure a township employee is happy in the position that they're in, that they feel like there's growth, that is going to do wonders for the town because it's going to make them want to come to work and work even harder for the town. It's going to make them want to be more efficient. And we're seeing that right now. Town hall is being run so well right now, and things are getting done and people are happy, and the town is moving in a really good direction. And I think it's a huge credit to the mayor. I can't take much credit for that. It is really the mayor that has done a great job with just managing this transition and, working to make sure that he's up to speed and that the departments all feel that they're properly equipped and, he's listening and that they're listening and, we're finding a good medium and balance to just get Parsippany to be at the best position it can be at.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think like the biggest thing I always feel as a resident is like something you got to focus on is like your town, because nowadays, like with everything on social media, with layoffs happening, parents are kind of like distressed. And there's a lot of mental health stuff. When one person loses their job, the second person is like the breadwinner of the family. They have to take care of the kids, and they also don't have time to go to town hall meetings. So I think having you in place kind of really does help them out when it comes to, and even reaching them. I think that's a next step you might want to take, because that person that I just described may not have social media, right? So I think you could definitely, like, even if you meet them in person, show them how to use social media, or someone else can show them, but they can find a way to you, and then they can learn, because they also are, struggling at the moment with like the unemployment rate and everything, right? So I think you're going to do great. And I think, I've heard great things about you so far. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for your kind words. They're very humbling.
No, cool. Is there anything else you want to, any other topics you want to bring up that we didn't cover? I know we went through so much. It's already been like almost an hour, but I would love to have you on more.
No, I would love to be back at some point. I can't think of anything off the top of my head because we did just cover so much. But I think leaving it off. We talked about a lot. It was great. And I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, this term, this election, position that I hold, I want to emphasize that it's about the people. I am you are me. And that is kind of my message here of like, I'm meeting you where you are because I understand I am you. I was that person that worked 3 jobs in college and had class and couldn't make it to the local meeting. So I get it. And I'm trying to be the elected official that I wish we had more of and that we have more of. Because at the end of the day, like, I do know who pays me and I do know who elects me, and I know how much of a privilege this is to be able to represent my community. And I do this job not because I want recognition or because I want the money or any of it. It's because this town means so much to me that I want to be someone that can help it and that can help its residents. And, that's kind of where office hours came into play. That's where these videos came into play. And if anyone ever wants to reach out, I'm one of, I think, the only people on the website that has like a cell phone number on my profile. So like they can call me, text me, so people can actually directly reach me as opposed to just going through town hall, because I think it's important that people have a direct line to their local elected official that can help them in situations and can help either, educate them on an issue that they may not know much about, or even just explain something that's going on that they may feel uncomfortable with. Just, being a landline, a resource, a friend to our community is what our elected officials should be, and that's what I'm hoping to be. And hopefully people will have more suggestions like you just had about meeting people where they are. I would love to do town halls like monthly. It's just about getting the logistics of that together. But like, I want suggestions and I want to hear what people want, because that's the whole point of this. It's about serving the people of Parsippany.
Maybe the next one we can do it at Parsippany Library or something. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Or in person. Cool. Whatever works, No, and I think like I'm definitely just excited to see you do great things and come back to this and look back and be like, okay, we did this, and these are the things we're focusing on. And I think people like it when someone is so involved. So just keep at your pace. I think you're doing a great job, and I think you're going to do great things. And again, thank you for coming on. And really, like, I think, if you also want to plug in anything too, so that people can reach out to you directly, feel free to do so right now. Or I could just share your posts on social media. Up to you.
Yeah, no. I mean, anyone who wants to follow me can follow me at Diya Patel NJ on Instagram. And then I have a Diya page on Facebook. If you just look up Councilwoman Diya Patel on Facebook, it should come up. But that's my social media. And then my phone number and my email is on the website. So you can get me on any of those.
Don't bombard.
Thank you so much for having me. All your kind words.
No, of course. Thank you so much, Diya. It was great having you. Thanks.
Thank you. It was great chatting.